So today we're joined by Alan Vincent, Sales Manager from RMB Boulanger, and his colleague Anne, also from RMB, will be sitting in the background looking after the presentation. And I will let Alan introduce himself shortly. For any questions that we are unable to answer during today's webinar, we will ensure that we or RMB will come back to you in the next couple of days to continue the conversation and solve your queries. So before I hand you over to Alan, I would just like to take a few moments to introduce you to the portfolio of services available under the international trade banner of my team at the Hampshire Chamber of Commerce. So we are able, bear with me a moment. So we are an issuer of the ATA Carnet. This is a temporary movement document that's valid to over 73 countries, including the EU. It's valid for up to a period of 12 months and will allow you to move your goods temporarily for purposes such as international trade fairs, exhibitions, taking commercial samples overseas, professional tools, that sort of thing. We also issue the UK Certificate of Origin, and this is a document that confirms the non-preferential origin of goods, and it can be raised for any country throughout the world. We also work with HM Revenue and Customs and can issue the UK EUR1 Movement Certificate, issued purely for UK preferential origin goods, and can assist with duty-free admission into any countries that the UK has a trade agreement with. Some trade agreements will not ask for an EUR1, some will ask for invoice declarations, so you would need to check the relevant declaration agreement, but certainly we can help you with the EUR1 movement certificate if it's required. We also offer a range of international trade workshops, ranging from the basic understanding export through to export documentation, right the way through to the more complex letters of credit, methods of payment. We're also proud to be part of the Chamber Customs service, which is a customs brokerage service and can help you move your goods over the UK border. Essentially, we would complete and submit your import and export declarations on your behalf. And finally, as well as having an accredited network in the UK of Chambers of Commerce, we're also fortunate to have a network of chambers, accredited chambers overseas. So if you're looking at potential new markets, or you have questions about a particular market, competitors looking for suppliers, etc., don't hesitate to make contact with us and we can put you in touch with our colleagues overseas. So who are we and where to find us? This is my team. Some of them look much better than that. That's a better image of me than real. So this is my team. We have myself, Stacey, David, Ellie, Wendy, and Ben. That's details of our website, our contact telephone number, and we're part of the Business Hub in Fareham, and we are on the campus of Fareham College. And so that's enough from me. I'm going to hand you over to Alan.
Thanks very much, Jackie. That was great. As I said earlier, my name is Alan Vincent from RMB Boulanger, and this is just a little highlight of who we are. We have been going over 40 years. We're a French company helping non-French companies with their VAT liabilities in all of the EU. We've got a 30+ strong team in an office in Neuville-en-Forain, just outside Lille, and we have reported 2.8 billion euros worth of transactions to the national tax authorities, dealing with nearly 1,000 customers now rather than 900 in over 45 countries. What we specialise in is VAT registration and compliance across all the EU member states and VAT consultancy services, but we also have a dedicated Brexit service and a dedicated Brexit team in-house who can deal with all of the complications that have come with Brexit and the ever-changing landscape that comes with Brexit as well. Our main goal is to help you export to the EU as if Brexit never happened. So that is the overall umbrella of what we want to get you to. And we can, and it really is quite a simple solution, even though there's been lots of hearsay, lots of bad advice gone about since Brexit finished. We're here to tell you that there is a solution to get your goods, selling your goods DDP into the EU and it is just like Brexit never happened. But there's some hoops to jump through first, so we'll go through those. Okay, so because what we want to do is we want to get your goods into the EU as quickly as possible. If you can imagine that, so pre-Brexit, we would ship our goods out and we could be delivered anywhere in the EU, DDP, no problem. What we need to do now is we need to get the goods into the EU in as quick and as seamless and cost-effective way as possible, and then get the goods delivered out. Now, the closest place to get us into the EU is France. It's geographically the closest place, and it's also got the smart border, which is the only smart border that we've got access to. It's a fully automated and digital process, and it allows goods to cross the water and clear customs as they cross the water, and deal with the import VAT as we cross the water, as we'll talk about later. But as soon as they land in Calais, those goods then become in free circulation to be delivered anywhere in the EU, just like Brexit never happened. So once they clear customs in Calais and they deal with the import VAT, like I said, they're in free circulation. So there's no further VAT and there's no further customs checks, no matter where those goods are delivered. Now, what the smart border gives us is that 99.3% of all trucks crossing the border, the smart border solution, hit the green lane. Now, if you don't know the implications of that, there's either a green lane or an orange lane at Calais. Your drivers will be given a barcode before they leave your premises. They scan that barcode on entry to the train or the ferry as they cross the water. And on the train or ferry, there are big screens which relate to that barcode and their truck's registration number. And it tells them whether they go in the green lane or the orange lane. If they go in the orange lane, it means they've got to stop or some kind of control. Paperwork needs to be checked, load needs to be checked, something. If they go in the green lane, they don't need to stop. They get off the train or the ferry and they carry straight on to their destination. Everything is done, dealt with. Nothing to do for that driver. If they do, fortunately for us, that 0.7% of trucks that do get a stop, the delay there is only about an hour, maybe 2 hours, typically. There's no days of waiting. So transit times aren't really affected with the orange lane, but the green lane is, like I say, where most trucks go. And what that means is, because you've cleared customs, because you've dealt with your import VAT, you don't need a T1 document to get your goods through France into your country of destination. So no T1s required anymore. As we've said, France is the closest to us as our closest neighbour, and there's a massive gateway into Europe. France have worked really, really hard to make themselves the most attractive point of entry for everybody coming into the EU, but particularly for the UK companies. They have lower compliance costs when it comes to VAT. They have the smart border. They've invested over nearly €1 billion in the port of Calais, which is phenomenal. I was there recently and it's vast. It's a massive, massive operation. They are closest geographically, and they've also whitelisted all of the UK companies, even before Brexit, and they have a mutual reciprocal tax agreement with the UK. And what that means is that UK companies don't have to have an entity in France or the EU in order to benefit from being able to deal with the VAT in country. So a UK company can own a French VAT number and deal with all of your VAT liabilities with just using a VAT agent. RMB Boulanger happens to be one. So you can just deal with your VAT liabilities there, and that's all you need to deal with. You don't need to set up an entity. You don't need to have a business there. You don't need to pay corporation tax or social contributions or any of the other things that come with owning a business in another country. It can all be dealt with on a single VAT number. And what that means is that we can go back to shipping DDP. And for anyone that doesn't know, and I'm sure you all do, but that's delivery duty paid. What happened post-Brexit is a lot of companies stopped delivering DDP because they thought they couldn't. They went to DAP, which is putting the burden of administration on the client in Europe, making them responsible for the duties and the VAT as the goods entered the EU, or they stopped delivering completely. And as I say, there was lots of bad advice, lots of hearsay that went about. You can't do it; it's impossible. You know, you need to set up bricks and mortar in France and all of the other countries that he's delivered to. Absolutely not true. But DDP is the way we used to do it, and it's what most European customers want. Certainly, in our experience, they want to go back to how it used to be. They want to go back to receiving the goods for the amount they paid for them and not having any further liabilities with duties, fees, or VAT costs. So delivery duty paid is where you as the UK exporter have responsibility for that load all the way up to your customer's doorstep. And that's where the transfer of ownership happens. And that's what we want to bring back for all of the companies in the UK that have moved away from it because they didn't think they could do it. So why DDP? Well, as I've said, your European clients purchase goods that are in free circulation. So that is in effect as if you were based in France. Because you're in effect selling off your French VAT number, the sale is from France to Germany or Austria or Poland or Spain or wherever it may be. And that is an intra-community transaction. And there's no VAT to be charged on there. So you don't charge VAT to your European clients. You've dealt with the import VAT as the goods have entered France. And then that free circulation model means that those goods can be shipped out anywhere and delivered to your customers anywhere for the price they paid. They're not involved in that process at all. You keep full control of the supply chain all the way down the line. As I've said, you don't need to set up a company in France. You remain a British company. Your corporation tax liabilities remain in the UK. And what's happened with the import VAT is, and this is vital for people to know, is that last year, for example, you could pay your customs broker, your French customs broker, the import VAT, and the customs broker would pay the authorities, and then you try and claim back from the authorities that import VAT. So the massive cash flow issue there, your cash will be tied up from anywhere between 6 and 9 months while you try to claim it back from the authorities. Now, at the start of this year, the French government said, you're not allowed to do that anymore. You can't pay your customs brokers who then pay us and claim it back. You have to pay us directly. Okay, in order to pay us directly, you have to use a French VAT number. Okay, but to get a French VAT number is going to take 3 to 4 months because there's a delay in the authorities. So there was a backlog at the start of this year. What they also said in the same breath, though, was that the reverse charge mechanism or postponed VAT accounting is now mandatory in France. So if you're importing into France, you need to use a French VAT number, which we'll talk about in a second, but also the reverse charge mechanism is mandatory now. So there's actually no import VAT to pay. It's just a paper exercise because that import VAT is deferred at the time of customs clearance. So there's no cash flow issues anymore for UK companies, nothing to pay, therefore nothing to claim back. So therefore nothing to charge your customers, therefore nothing to collect, therefore nothing to pay, therefore, so VAT is taken care of. There is no VAT to pay anymore. So the cash flow issue is taken care of. What we've got now is we've got a slight delay in you as a UK exporter getting the French VAT number. Now it was 3 to 4 months at the start of the year. It's now closer to 2 to 3 months, between 8 and 12 weeks is what we say. But you need a French VAT number to clear your goods in France. And we'll talk. And there are 2 options with that, but we'll discuss them. I'll talk about those in a second. Okay. So why is France so attractive compared to other countries, perhaps? Well, I know that a lot of UK companies got advised to set up a company in the Netherlands or even set up a company in Ireland because that will give them the access to the EU. Well, Ireland, no, not really, because you'd have to send your goods to Ireland to then send them into the EU, and you'd probably come into France. So that extends your logistic route and costs. Coming into the Netherlands, absolutely, yes, no problem. But the Dutch government require full fiscal representation in the Netherlands and a bank guarantee, which is, I don't think it is. I know it is. It's 5% of your predicted turnover in Europe. It has to sit with the Dutch government as a guarantee for your VAT liabilities for the rest of the year. The French don't do that. The French have this reciprocal tax agreement, so no bank guarantee is required. You don't need full fiscal representation. A VAT agent is advisable, in the same way that a solicitor would be advisable if you went to court. You could represent yourself, you could do your VAT returns yourself if you've got the capabilities, if you've got the language skills, and if you've got the relationship with the French VAT authorities, you could do it yourself. But the French government advised that get a VAT agent, but not a full fiscal representative, and that reciprocity, I hate that word, that reciprocity agreement with the French government means that tax is you're able to manage that VAT liability from the UK. So B2B sales in the EU are VAT exempted. As I say, there's no VAT to charge. And whereas in other countries, a domestic sale, so in the Netherlands, for example, if you were to do a domestic sale to a Dutch company, you'd have to charge Dutch VAT. In France, you don't have to do that, because there is an article in French VAT law that says even selling domestically to French businesses from a company outside of the EU, there's no VAT to be charged. So it makes it a strong solution. You are the exporter of record on your products. You're also the importer of record into France. You remove all that customs and VAT responsibility from your client, and that's just how it was before Brexit. And with that single VAT number, you can then ship those goods out to anywhere in the EU. Because, as I said before, it's as if you're selling from France. And no matter where you ship to in the EU, that's an intra-community sale. And you have to document and declare that those goods have entered the French economy and they've moved to a different economy. They've gone to Spain or they've gone to Germany or whatever. But you keep control of that process all the way through to the end. Your invoicing is still UK to Germany, UK to Portugal, wherever that may be. But on your commercial invoices and on your transit documents, you're quoting your French VAT number, and that's where the VAT liabilities are taken care of. So at RMB, at RM Boulanger, we do have a dedicated Brexit team. Then we will support you all the way through this process. It's in our best interest to make sure that we handhold you through this process and that your paperwork is pristine. From a mercenary point of view, if your paperwork's pristine, we've got less work to do, so we make more money. But if there is a discrepancy in what you've told us you've done compared to what your import brokers told you is coming to the country, compared to what the tax authorities have automatically injected into your VAT return, then we pick up the phone. We are a people business, we're not an algorithm business. We pick up the phone, you have a dedicated account manager who picks up the phone and says, Bob, I think there's a decimal place missing here, or I think there's a line missing here. Can we fix it before we submit this return? So again, we're making sure that those VAT returns are absolutely perfect as we go. So there are, if there is an audit or if there is a control, we've got all the information to hand immediately and we can deal with that on your behalf. And we do, that's exactly what we do. We manage your VAT returns. We manage any audits, any questions with the authorities, and we have a multilingual office. So we can even talk to your customers with you to help them understand the process as well. We can provide immediate assistance with products of animal origin, and we work really closely with brokers at the French border that have expertise in that. And we must reiterate, there are no other tax implications other than your VAT. So how do we do it? What do we need to do? Well, first, you need an EU EORI number. Now, you will probably have a GB EORI number. That's fine. That will get the goods out of the country, but it doesn't get the goods into the EU. You must have an EU EORI number. Now, a Northern Ireland EORI number, an XI EORI number, does count as an EU EORI number. However, a word of caution, the political landscape about Northern Ireland and the Northern Ireland Protocol is tumultuous at best. So although it's okay at the moment, it might not be next week, it might not be next month, it's 6 months. It might be fine, but it might not be. So what we advise our clients is to get a mainland EU EORI number. So we can get you a French EORI number, no problem. You only need one because it's one EORI number to identify you with customs right across the EU. Then you need to appoint RM Boulanger as your tax representative. Obviously, you don't have to appoint us, but it'd be really nice if you did. We're really nice, I promise. And then we can deal with everything on your behalf. We will register your company for VAT in France, or we will share our own global VAT number with you. Now, as I said before, There are two ways to do this. To import into France, you need a French VAT number. Now, you can either have your own French VAT number, and that's sometimes referred to as regime 40. It's actually 4000, but it's not the last two zeros off because they're pointless. You have your own French VAT number, that's regime 40, or you use an accredited company's global VAT number. And this is commonly referred to as regime 42, which may be something that you've heard about. Now, RMB Boulanger, we are an accredited company. We're accredited to the highest level in France, and we do have a separate global VAT number that we can, in effect, rent out to our clients. Now, it's a global VAT number in that anybody can use it, but it is a French VAT number. So your goods would still have to come through France. But what they can do is, rather than you being registered yourself and your goods transactions going on your own VAT return, you can rent our global VAT number, and those transactions can go on our VAT return, and we can take liability for the VAT for you. Now, the benefits of that are we can turn that around really quickly. Remember before I said there was a 2 to 3 month wait for your own French VAT number? Well, using our global VAT number, we can get that turned around in 2 or 3 days. So you can use it pretty much immediately. The downside is you can't sell domestically in France. One of the stipulations for regime 42 is those goods have to come into France and have to immediately go to another EU member state, and it's only a business-to-business solution. So there are restrictions, there are limitations with regime 42, but it does work very well for a number of scenarios. You will have to pay an import declaration per consignee. So if you have a truck with 10 pallets on for 10 different customers in 10 different countries with 10 different VAT numbers, you'll have to pay for 10 different import declarations. If you had your own French VAT number, you could do that one truck, 10 pallets, 10 customers, 10 countries under one import declaration. So there are pros and cons both ways. So coming back to, so either way you go, whether it's your own French VAT number or whether you use ours, we will prepare and file your French VAT returns on a monthly basis. We'll take care of all the correspondence with the tax authorities, and we can continuously assist you with any issues you have in the EU. And what I've got here is I've got a couple of case studies that will probably resonate with you depending on how you're set up. So the first one would be your company sells to French businesses only. The only way you can do this is having your own French VAT number. As I've just said before, regime 42 using our VAT number, you can't sell domestically in France. So if you want to sell to French businesses, you have to have, and you want to sell DVP, you have to have your own French VAT number. So import VAT, let's say you bring your goods into France and the value of these goods attracts an import VAT of 10,000 euros. Well, as I said before, there's not 10,000 euros to pay. That 10,000 euros gets automatically injected into your VAT return for the following month. And we see that information from the tax authorities. We check that with what your import broker has told us has come in, and we check that with what you've told us has been sold in the EU. And those three pieces of information are the things that we need to pull together to reconcile those and make sure there are no discrepancies before we submit your VAT return. Okay. So what do you need? Well, you need a customs broker in France. You need a VAT agent, RMB Boulanger, happy to work with you on your behalf. And then on your invoicing, you need to mention that you've got your French VAT number on that invoices. So on your import declaration, on your export declaration, it will be your GB VAT number and your GB EORI number. On your import declaration, it'll be your EU EORI number and your French VAT number. And the same on your commercial invoice, on your French VAT number, and your sales invoice to your customer will have your French VAT number on it. And we will report those transactions to the French tax authorities for VAT purposes. Now, clearly, it's not just limited to France. Having your own French VAT number allows you to sell in all of the EU. So it opens up all of the EU for you, and you can sell in France. So that's case study one. Case study two, you sell to French and EU-based clients. Well, this is exactly the same. If you have your own French VAT number, you're covered. You can sell in France and you can sell in other EU-based clients. Now, what we can do for your other EU-based clients is use regime 42, and we can use that as a temporary solution for you whilst your French VAT number is coming through. So what we have a situation a lot of the times is people tell me, if they say, Alan, I need to send these goods into the EU next week, but I know we need to get a French VAT number and it's going to take 3 months. So in that 3-month period, why don't you use our VAT number for the rest of your EU clients, and maybe either talk to your French clients and arrange a DAP solution where they take on the VAT and the duties for a short period of time, or it may be that your market in France is small enough to be able to put them on pause and not ship to them until you get a French VAT number. That all depends on your commercial setup, and happy to advise you on how that looks and how that can work out. But the process is still the same. You need a customs broker in France, you need a VAT agent, and you mention the French VAT number on your invoices. If you're using Regime 42 and using our French VAT number, then you mention our French VAT number on your invoices. And there are a couple of legal statements that you need to put on the commercial invoice and the sales invoice as well, to let the customs authorities know that you're using Regime 42. And again, in our best interest to make sure that your paperwork is absolutely pristine, because it's now, with using Regime 42, it's our liabilities. You know, if the VAT man comes knocking, it's us they're going to audit, not you. So we need to make sure that your paperwork is absolutely clear, and any customs official anywhere along the supply chain route can pick up that document and say, I know exactly what's going on. Once again, your import VAT is exempted on all goods, wherever they're shipped to the EU, and your company deals with the VAT on its own VAT number. So here's how it looks. Pictorially, we like to do things in pictures as well. So goods exporting from the UK, import VAT deferment on a French VAT number, so no import VAT to pay, but it must be declared. Then those goods supplied from France to French registered customers, the reverse charge mechanism applies and there's no VAT to charge to your French customers. For your companies established within the EU, they are counted as intra-EU deliveries on your French VAT number, so no VAT to charge. And then if you're exporting from France to countries outside the EU, you use your French VAT number on the export. Third case study kind of takes you away from France completely. If your customers are only in other countries in the EU and not France, then you could use Regime 42 and only Regime 42 if you want. Depends on your expansion plans, depends on your commercial setup, but Regime 42 can be used immediately. Same thing, they're both built on the same platform. No VAT to pay up front, so no pre-financing of VAT at time of import into France. No VAT registration required, clearly, because it's our VAT number and we take on the liability for that. And all your goods are shipped on a DDP basis. Again, your clients are not involved, but you must mention RMB's global VAT number on your invoices, and we report these transactions to the tax authorities for VAT and interest tax purposes. Again, this method must be really clear. This method is not applicable to sales in France, but is applicable to sales everywhere else. It's for most, I would say for 85% of my customers, for my UK customers, having their own French VAT number is the best route. It's the most stable, it's the most cost-effective route to sell DDP in the EU. But there are a number of clients who Regime 42 sits as the best solution. So let's have a conversation, let's have a one-to-one. Tell me about what your current situation is and what your plans are for the future, and then we can give best advice as to what solution is best for you. And here is, again, pictorially, Regime 42. You're still the importer of record. It's still, the UK company is still the importer of record. It's just that the VAT goes on our VAT return, not your own. And for any of you that are dealing with the import declarations, in the boxes, just at the bottom box there is box 2 is obviously your name and your UK EURI number. Box 8, your name and your EU EURI number. You've got box 17, which is the country of destination. Box 37 is the 4200, we call it 42, customs regime. And then in box 44, you've got the VAT number of your EU client in their destination country. And YO42 limited tax agent would be RMB Boulanger, and that would be our VAT number, which is where the sale's coming from. Even though we never take ownership of the goods, it's a limited tax representation, limited in that we only deal with the VAT portion. We don't own the goods, we don't sell the goods, nothing like that. That all remains with you. Okay, that was a whistle stop and nearly 10:30 finish for you. I tried to speak quickly as I could. What I'd invite you to do now is invite you to unmute yourself, turn on your cameras if you want, and have you got any questions about shipping DDP into the EU that we can help you with?
I think, Alan, you might be the one that needs to unmute them. So if, wait, I'll try and take back the control so I can do it.
Okay. I do have a couple of questions in the chat box,
Yeah.
so I'll deal with those first while you're dealing with that, Anne. Casey has asked, we had a customer yesterday who is exporting to Romania via France, and the goods got as far as France before they were thrown back to the UK because the Romanian entity were not VAT registered in France. How is this going to work on a long-term basis when the companies do not wish to register VAT? Okay, Karen, in that scenario, that there has to be a French VAT number in order to clear the goods in France. If you were shipping to Romania and clearing the goods in Romania, you could clear on the Romanian company's Romanian VAT number, but you'd need to use a T1 document to get the goods from France to Romania. Either the UK company has to have a French VAT number, and as we've discussed, it's either their own or it's a limited tax representative such as RMB's VAT number, or the EU company needs a French VAT number if they want to clear in France. So it's all about where the goods are clearing customs, where you're dealing with the import VAT. So on a long-term basis, one of the companies has to register for VAT if you want to clear in France, or you need to use T1 documents to get them across to Romania, where they're going to clear in Romania, which, as we know, T1 documents can be expensive, be very expensive, and they can increase transit times exponentially. Does that answer your question, Karen?
Yeah, so just to clarify, sorry,
Yeah.
just so I can go back to my customer. So
No, good.
if they were operating on a T1, they wouldn't need the French VAT.
No, but it would cost them a lot of money to get a T1 from France across all the way to Romania.
Yeah,
and then
if that's their choice, then that's the possibility. Right, perfect. Thank you.
Your UK customer can register in France, register a VAT number in France, can clear the goods in France, and then can deliver those goods anywhere in the EU, including Romania, without the need of a T1, because the goods are already cleared. Alternatively, the Romanian company can register for VAT in France, and they can clear the goods in France there if they want to, and not use a T1 to get them back into Romania.
Perfect. Thank you.
That answers your question. Excellent. Okay, Francis, how is VAT handled in this scenario? Manufacturer is in an EU country, Germany. Buyer is in the UK, but end customer is in another EU country, e.g. the Republic of Ireland. The goods are shipped directly from Germany to Ireland and not physically imported into the UK. How would the German manufacturer charge and handle VAT? Francis, that's all about triangulation and makes things tricky. But for triangulation to work, we need 3 VAT numbers in 3 countries within the EU. So in this situation, because the UK is not in the EU anymore, you can't use triangulation. But if the UK company has a French VAT number, they can purchase the goods from the German manufacturer using their French VAT number and deliver, and the German manufacturer can deliver to the Irish end customer, and it would still go on the French VAT number, because the transaction is between the UK and Ireland, but using Germany as a manufacturer. So you can use triangulation that way, but you need to have 3 VAT numbers in 3 EU countries in order to use triangulation. So my advice there would be for the UK company to have a French VAT number and then to triangulate within the EU with that. Does that answer your question, Francis?
Yeah, so there's no way to do it without an EU VAT number.
Not now. The UK is not in the EU. No, you can't triangulate outside of the EU.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. So those are the 2 questions in chat. Oh, we've got one in Q&A as well. Excellent. So Lisa said, do we still use our regular freight forwarders, Kerner and Nagel, for instance? Absolutely. Absolutely. Doesn't matter which freight forwarders, hauliers you use. If you have your own French VAT number, and we work really closely with Kerner and Nagel, so we know them really well. But it doesn't matter. As long as your documentation shows that you're using the French VAT number, as long as your customs broker in France recognizes that you're using your French VAT number and sees that documentation coming through, it's no problem. It's absolutely no issues with whichever haulier you use. And if any haulier tells you that is a problem, find a different haulier because they're wrong. Does that answer your question, Lisa?
It does, thank you.
Yeah, great stuff. Okay, so to the rest of you, do we have any other questions? Nick, shout up. Good hand raise, Nick.
Hi. Yeah, I'm from Sheffield, Alan. All this is really, really interesting. There is just one area which I'm not too sure about, and that is using the regime 42. So the goods are going from the UK to Italy through France.
Yes.
Okay. Now, earlier on, you said that who actually pays the VAT for the goods going into Italy?
There's no VAT to pay.
Because of the regime 42.
Because the reverse charge mechanism in France is mandatory. So that transaction, that import VAT, has to get declared on a VAT return. Now with regime 42, it gets declared on our VAT return. So what we do is we charge a fee for using regime 42. So we charge a fee per shipment, and a shipment is defined as a load or part load that has a consignee. So as we said in our example before, where we said a truck with 10 pallets on, that shipment could be all 10 pallets because it's going to one customer and there's one consignee, or that truck could have 10 shipments on it because those 10 pallets are going to 10 customers with 10 consignees. So for regime 42, the import VAT on each of those shipments goes on our VAT return, and we charge a fee per shipment to our clients for that privilege. But there's no VAT to pay. So there's no cash to hand out.
Yeah. So that VAT, the European VAT, is being settled in France. Yes. But that's being done on PVA. Or is it physical money paid to the French authorities because it's not going to France, it's going into other European country? Correct.
So because it's postponed VAT accounting, PVA, as you rightly said, it just needs to be declared. Because VAT, when it was introduced in the 60s, by France actually, was only ever supposed to be a tracking mechanism. It was always supposed to be net zero for companies.
Yeah. Okay. So does that change anything? Because if you don't own the goods, you can't reclaim VAT. Now I know there's nothing to pay because it's on PVA, but if you don't own the goods, then can you still use the PVA system? You can.
As in, RMB Boulanger don't own the goods.
Yes. Yeah. No. Because you don't own the goods.
Yeah. So what happens is, because we've signed that client up for regime 42, they have signed a contract for us to be their limited tax representative in France, which means that we can put their import VAT on our VAT return. But we don't own the goods. You're absolutely right. We don't own the goods. But there's no VAT in that whole supply chain unless they're supplying to consumers. And if they're supplying to consumers, and obviously consumers have to pay VAT, you can't use regime 42. It's got to be a business-to-business solution. So because we're limited tax representatives, the contract is, and the rules are, that we can take on the VAT liability for that transaction, but nothing else. So you're right, we don't own the goods. The goods remain the ownership of the UK company until they deliver the goods on the DDP solution. And once they deliver the goods, that's a transfer of ownership. So on their Italian customers' VAT return, there'll be a purchase, but it'll be an intra-EU purchase. So on their VAT return, it'll be an Intrastat report. On their on the UK companies' sales ledger, it will be a sale to a European customer with no VAT.
Okay. All right. This is really, really interesting, I have to say, and it's something that I've thought about for quite some time, but there's quite a lot to take in. Jackie, is this being recorded, and is the recording, because I'd like to go through it again slowly?
Absolutely, yeah. There will be copies of the slides and a copy of the recording sent to you after the webinar this morning.
That's very interesting. Thank you very much indeed, Jacqueline, and thanks, Alan.
No problem at all. And along with my contact details, Nick, I'm just down the road from you in Grimsby. I'm an hour away from you.
Okay, great.
So
good.
I'm UK based. My mobile number will be on the contact details of when we distribute the slides and the recording. I'm happy to talk you through anything, and it's what I do daily. You know, talking through this. There is a lot to take in. I did go through that slide presentation quite quickly, but I wanted to open it up to questions afterwards because I think people learn more that way.
Sure. No, I agree. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. All right, I'll speak to you soon, Nick.
Cheers.
Do we have any other questions from anyone in the room? Come on now, don't be shy.
Super complicated.
Okay, then if we have no more questions, please do take note of our contact details, which are on the screen now. That's me in my winter plumage with my beard. So just in case you don't recognize me, but I am UK based, and I'm happy to talk to any of you in depth about this and answer any questions that you have. It is a really simple solution. The feedback I get a lot from my clients is it sounds too good to be true. It isn't. It's been available since Brexit, since day one of Brexit. It's just that people didn't know about it. And like I say, there was a lot of bad advice. There was a lot of hearsay that went around, that people thought they couldn't do this. They couldn't deliver DDP into Europe as easily. But it really is a simple solution. Just needs a bit of attention paid to it. And once that's done, you'll find that your transit times are greatly reduced, and your costs are possibly greatly reduced as well.
Okie doke. So with no more questions, and we'll sort of bring this to a close, I just would like to say that I hope you have found today's webinar of help, that it has answered any questions that you may have had. As we've said, the recording and the slide presentation will be emailed out to you. I'd like to just finish with saying a big thank you to Alan and Anne for all their help in organising the webinar this morning. And finally, just to thank you all for taking the time to join us. And I hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Jackie, and everyone.